my secret. Just do something that ain't nobody ever done before, but make it sound like something that's always been there forever.
Welcome to This Filipino American Life, a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States. At Iba Pa, my name is Elaine Dallas, and I am joined by my fellow hosts,
Ryan Carpio,
Joe Bernardo,
and
Mike.
Producer Mike.
Fine.
You have to hit it. Not as loud as last time. We're not deaf. Thank you.
My begrudging air horns.
Yes. This episode is brought to you by our TFAL, William Aguila.
William. Oh, William. Billy.
Billy Aguila.
Will.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
No. Yeah? Kind of?
Will I Aguila.
Well, thank you, Will, for your contribution. And
thank you, William.
Because we can do TFAL because you help us. And we have a special guest coming all the way from, where are you? What barangay are you in?
Barangay Taguig, BGC, Philippines.
BGC.
Wow. Isabelle Lacson.
Yay.
Pew, pew, pew. Don't push it because it'll be too loud.
Oh.
No. Oh, jeez.
You asked for it.
Oh my gosh. What time is it there?
Time.
The future.
10:25.
10:25 a.m.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday.
The
May 5th.
future.
I am in the
She's the
future,
future.
guys.
You're a time traveler.
I know. How did that happen?
No, really. How
Philippines
does
is the
it happen?
future.
I will never understand that line in the globe that makes time travel.
The international date line?
The international date line. Yeah.
Oh. I was like, what are you talking about?
The line.
I haven't gone anywhere that would require me to skip a day.
It's like today.
How about
tomorrow.
when you do daylight savings time?
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's just an hour, though.
It's just an hour.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah, so I'm you guys in the future right now.
Oh, awesome.
We can't wait.
Yeah, and we have Ish on. We call her Ish. That's our friend name for her. We have her on so she could speak upon what the situation is like in the Philippines with COVID. So we've been talking throughout this whole social distance series about what our experience is like, but we wanted to know what it was like in the Philippines. And but before we do that, we would like to do an origin story with Ish. So apparently, I think the beginnings for a lot of our guests is SIPA, is Search to Involve Filipino Americans.
Yeah, it is. So I guess you guys know that I knew Elaine and Mike from SIPA days back in 2008. Oh God.
Lifetime
It's just
ago.
yesterday.
2008. Yeah, that was like 2 days ago or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just finished up college at SC and wanted to work somewhere. That was around like the economic downturn time. So I was like, probably need a job to get through this. Probably need some money. So yeah, I started working at SIPA and had my like NGO life in LA. And then I moved back to the Philippines in 2010.
Oh, so you were born in the Philippines?
No, I was actually born there in the U.S. in Chicago, Chi-town, woot woot.
Yeah, I hear that thick Chicago accent right now.
Yeah, I
so
know, right?
thick, the Bears,
Do
right?
you guys see the
Bears.
pizza behind me?
Thick like a pizza.
Yeah. But then my family moved to LA not long after I was born, so I didn't really grow up in Chicago per se. But yeah, I was like in the Philippines and in LA, back and forth for many, many years. And now I'm back here again.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's my life.
Oh, y'all, Ish is like us in that she's a diehard Dodger fan.
Yes.
And my favorite story of hers is how her parents snuck her into the Dodger game.
Yeah,
by hiding. Tell them the story because this is just hilarious.
I don't know if this is like a thing for other people, but it was a thing for us. But like, so my parents had like so many friends in LA, so I guess they didn't feel the need to buy me a separate Dodger ticket anytime when I was a kid, because like they would just squeeze me between people and be super rowdy at the ticket counters and stuff, like just like shove me through. So they did this to me at Laker games too. It was a thing for our family. I don't know how much it cost. Was it like $10 more just to buy me a ticket? It was not worth it.
That's the best. So now I imagine like when I see groups of people at Dodger games when they're getting all super rowdy trying to get through, I was like,
is there a kid in between?
Yes, there is.
It's like throwing them over the security thing.
They're sneaking in a shop.
Dodgers! Like just shove me through. It was like 5
like,
years
oh,
old.
there's an absent baby just walking through.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now you can't do that, right? Because of the metal detectors and stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
They have to go through all the security.
Now they'd have to pay the $5 or whatever.
I was gonna say at first I thought you meant like last year they did this or something.
It was maybe like 2 days ago or something. But wait, that was just me, you guys? That was not something that
I don't think. No, I never heard that before.
I've never heard of that.
Your parents?
My parents wouldn't even steal cable when everyone else was, so there's no way they would try to sneak in a kid anywhere.
Did your parents make you lie about how old you are at like Fuddruckers and shit?
Oh,
they did that. For sure.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah. Lying about age.
How old are you? 10.
They'll be like, "Oh, Joseph, you are 6 years old today." Okay. I go, okay. Well, like even at like places like Disneyland where the price difference is, I don't actually know anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I did that I did that to Mikey. I said to him, "You are 3 years old today," and he looked at me like, "I'm 4." I'm like, "You are 3 years old."
I thought producer Mikey.
Oh no.
That was also just yesterday.
Yeah. So SIPA is like the it feels like we should do like a bingo of like every time we have someone on and like how SIPA is the connection for us.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. Yeah. So then you moved to the Philippines to do what kind of work, Ish?
So right now I'm working for an international organization, and it's been really interesting, I guess, because out here it's like you're really working out in the field, as they say, not kind of sitting in a cushy office and just wondering how things are going on with programming on the ground. So yeah, that's what I've been up to since I came back in 2015. So I went to grad school in the US again, and then came back here in 2015. Yeah.
And then what kind of work do you do? What kind of work do you do? And which groups do you work with?
So we work primarily with the government of the Philippines, and I work on like disaster risk reduction programming, emergency programming. So yeah.
So every time there's like a typhoon or earthquake or whatever, that's when y'all are like at your peak busy?
Yeah, at our peak busy, pretty much supporting the government to do what they need to do. Yeah.
So what is it like now, given the pandemic? Like this is a different sort of like emergency, right?
Yeah. So we've been under what they're calling now the enhanced community quarantine. There's like jokes going around for like a few days, like because it was like community quarantine, general quarantine, like there's different levels. Then there's also an extreme one. So people were joking like it was just like one of those Microsoft Word document files that you put like final one. But like the name they finally settled on was enhanced community quarantine. And we've been under the ECQ since like March 15 or 16. So it's been over 40 days now, and they're saying it's going to be lifted on the 15th of May, but we're all pretty doubtful because it's like nothing really has changed in terms of how we're approaching the virus here in the Philippines. Like we don't have mass testing yet. So it's like, if you lift it, what changed really.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically we can't go out of the house. Here in our barangay, like a few weeks ago, they finally gave us a quarantine pass, which basically says like only one person can go out at a time, and only for groceries, important errands like going to the bank or to the pharmacy. So it's been pretty strict here, I think, compared to what I've seen you guys kind of go through in the States, because here it's really like, only one person can go out. And because the government like deployed like the military and the police and stuff, they're really like setting up a lot of checkpoints, and they look for your pass essentially if you go outside and you happen to run into a checkpoint. So yeah, basically we're all at home like you guys.
Do people get arrested if they don't have a pass, or what's the punishment?
Yeah, so that's been, I've read in the news that that's been happening, that people who don't have passes or like were breaking curfew, because there is a curfew. I'm actually not sure what time. Oh no, our curfew here is like 8 p.m. I think.
Oh, wow.
So if you're out past 8 p.m., I think here in my barangay, like the mayor put out a notice a few weeks ago because people were still like jogging and walking their dogs and stuff. So they had arrested some people and given them warnings. And because I live in an area where there are a lot of like expats and stuff, they did say like a lot of the people that they were arresting were foreigners too. So that's like how serious they are over here.
So I imagine it's different. Is it different rules for different cities around Metro Manila? And is it also different like than in the provinces?
Yeah, so I think here in Metro Manila, there are some areas like, I think last week, I had a colleague who lives in a barangay that had a number of cases. So they really like fully shut down that whole barangay. So they weren't on the enhanced quarantine. Like they really locked them down. So no one could go out. You couldn't go to the grocery and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Because they were trying to control the spread over there. But I don't know if it's still the same situation, because if you're on lockdown, then they're supposed to be bringing you supplies and stuff. You're not, since you can't go out. So I think they only did that for a while and then lifted it in the end. But again, it's like, what changed? Like, okay, you like locked them down for a few days, but then you didn't do like anything differently. So so it's hard to tell. But I think the rule here is like, if your barangay or your city exceeds a number of cases, then they'll put even stricter measures so you can't go out. But I would be like super scared if that happened here, because it's like, okay, like you're trying to control the spread, but how am I going to get my food, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't know if the government would like knock on the door and give me like my vegetables and shit. So yeah.
And cases in the Philippines are still increasing, correct? It hasn't leveled off or anything?
I think we're not there just yet. I didn't check. But what's alarming here, I guess, is I think compared to other places, we have a lot of doctors and nurses who have also contracted the virus, which is really scary. Because, I guess the control even within the hospitals isn't as good as it should be. And I think, I should confirm this, but the last time I heard, they also weren't like mass testing the doctors and nurses, the frontliners who are actually dealing with the COVID patients every day. So I'm sure that doesn't help in terms of our reporting of cases as well, because we're just not doing enough tests.
That's interesting. I wonder, that seems to be a universal issue, because I have family abroad who is a nurse, and they didn't give him a test until way later. Yeah. They were telling him like, just self-isolate. We're not going to test you. And then he finally did get a test, and I've been told that it came back negative, which thank God, right? But like, it's also like, but is it because you were isolating, like, or would the test tell you, whether or not it had
You
already
had
come
it.
and gone? Like how, like what are the parameters? Like what are they actually testing? Are they testing if you've had it or if you have it currently? Because that's the part where I'm like, if anything gets lifted, what
Yeah.
does the test look like and how do we measure it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some tests that allow you to find out whether or not you've already had it and kind of like passed it. Like you're not showing any symptoms anymore, but you've had it in the past. So testing is pretty much going to be the key to like without testing. Ish is right. Like so what, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't really done any testing, you can't really track. You can't really figure out what to do next. Because you could have symptoms of a cold but not COVID, and you isolate and you think you're done out of it. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many unknowns to this. That's why it's kind of it's unprecedented in that way. That's why antibody testing is like the talk of the town right now, just to make sure that people, whether or not people have developed some kind of immunities to it. So but yeah, very, very interesting. But I'm curious ish about like, so just comparing some of the experiences we had, but like is like food, like delivery, for example, groceries, are they, how do people get to cope with that? Because for us, I've had to learn not to go to the grocery store and have it delivered to me and stuff. And then there's a lot of small businesses here that a restaurant business, for example, they've switched from being restaurants to actually providing groceries for people. Is there anything like that in Metro Manila or in the Philippines, to your knowledge?
Yeah. So before COVID, definitely because I lived in the US, so I know that there's a huge difference in terms of like the online market in the US, like Amazon and like all the different sites that you guys can go to get your supplies. But here it wasn't at the same level, definitely. So there were a few companies that were doing like grocery deliveries and things like that. But I think what my friends and I have learned in this crisis is that the virus really forced a lot of businesses to go online. I think like they always had the excuse before, like we don't need to because we have storefronts and we have our own way of pushing our product out. But now like I feel a lot of the companies have really had to make the effort to put their businesses online. So I think I was telling you guys this a few days ago, but here in Metro Manila, a lot of groups like have started to like organically form. Like I think in the beginning it was all about like neighbors like sharing information about COVID in general, and then it turned into a lot of these food communities basically sharing information on where you could get certain supplies and like whether this company is already starting to sell online and things like that. So here, definitely you could still go to the grocery. The groceries are still open. But I remember when I was like talking to my mom last week because she lives in Vegas, and she was telling me like in their grocery, like they order it all online and you can just pick it up curbside. And here definitely doesn't work like that. So like my husband, I think the first week of the quarantine, like I just like had forgotten a few ingredients, and we like live on top of a grocery store here, and he was in line for like 3 hours.
Whoa.
It's like no joke, because they were only like letting in like 5 people at a time for the whole social distancing thing. And like they had a line outside that was also like social distance. So it looked super, super long, but it really wasn't that many people.
Yeah.
But because they were only letting in a few people at a time, it took forever. And I was like, oh my God, when you go in there, can you like buy as much as possible? Because like you wasted how many hours in line just waiting to get in. And it was like something stupid. Like we had forgotten like bread and like tomatoes. And I was like, I did not expect it to be that long. Yeah. So he came back and had a bunch of other stuff. But now like we're starting to like get deliveries as well. And a lot of the restaurants, like you're saying, Ryan, like just started selling the stock of food that they had. So we've gotten like a lot of random Korean barbecue meat that,
oh my God.
like all of the unlimited Korean barbecue places are selling off their meat and their kimchi and random like cans of vegetables and shit. But Viber is a huge thing here, and I'm just picking up something that fell. Sorry. So like the Viber groups that have come out, like some are all like related to food, some are just related to vegetables, some are related to bread. It's really funny. So like you join these groups and like they point you to these suppliers of all these things, and it's weird and cool and sweet in a way, because you just see like the community really coming together. Like last night, this guy just randomly posted like, I have mangoes for sale and I can deliver it for free in our barangay. And I was like, yeah, can I get 2 kilos of mangoes? And he was like, yeah, sure. And he like drove over and I just paid him face to face. And yeah, that's how it's been working here. So not as systematic as like the online ordering and stuff in the US, but a lot more like community.
Find a way.
Yeah.
How about like the palenques and stuff, like the wet markets? That's where like a lot of local farmers and like fishermen and stuff like sell their products.
Yeah, so I do believe that there are some like palenques that are still operating, and like you could still go in person, but there have been like a lot of community initiatives helping out these people who have, you know, fresh food supply and connect them to the online market. So like for the past few weeks, there's been like vegetable deliveries in my area, and it's coming straight from like the farmers in Benguet. And like there were just like these volunteer coordinators that kind of stepped up and like started like Google forms like for orders and stuff, and you know, things like that really like make it, I don't know, it's like a bright spot in this quarantine, that you know that you're like helping out some of these local small businesses and ensuring that people are getting, you know, some income during this time. So I've been having like my Benguet vegetables here in Metro Manila, which is really nice. So like all of the trucks come down, and you know, these volunteer vegetable peddlers have been organizing. So it's been nice.
That sounds like CSA boxes. What does CSA stand for? Community something, like for those farm boxes, right? That folks have been getting out here.
Yeah, so actually, like, I remember when I first ordered, they were like, oh, you either get a veggie pack or a salad pack. And in the veggie pack, it's just like random vegetables. Like, we'll just put it together and it's like this much weight. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you get what you get. And I was like, oh, wow, we're like eating in season now because of things like this, which is really nice. But yeah, I think it's also changed like some of the consumption patterns of people here too. Because like I would typically go to the grocery, but now like people are like more conscious, like we should support, you know, local businesses, we should support farmers, because of course this is putting a huge strain on them. So yeah, I see like the effort that my friends and family have been putting into supporting these small businesses that are definitely going through some hard times.
How about like the local street vendors that's like all around Metro Manila? Like, are they operating? Are they, you know, how are they surviving?
Yeah, I think like, so here in my area, there's not that many street vendors, but I saw like some social media posts like of friends of mine that there are some that are still operating because technically they're food, but they're like considered informal workers here. So they, I think by like the government's regulations on the quarantine, they shouldn't be out selling food. But the thing is, you know, we've been in this situation for more than a month now, and people definitely have lost a lot of income already. So you see like people trying to make do with the situation, you know, either by still continuing work. And I think like a lot of the guys who were doing deliveries before the quarantine, like, you know, we have delivery services for food, for groceries and things like that. I don't know if the I don't know if it's increased, like the people who are starting to get into this delivery business, but because they're the ones who can technically move around Metro Manila, other people have started like kind of joining those businesses to just to keep their families alive, essentially. So yeah, I try not to order too much for delivery, but it's difficult, definitely, when you know that there's not enough supply of things near you. So I know like these guys are really like putting themselves at risk by exposing themselves to deliver our stuff. So what a lot of people have been doing here is because they know like definitely they probably lost jobs, they're not getting enough income. Like my friends and my family, we've been like just giving more tip and trying to support them because we know that it's not easy right now.
So I know leading up to the announcement of quarantine,
Yeah.
I guess the president gave like a few days for folks to kind of warn them that it's coming.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember seeing news reports where a lot of people are just fleeing Metro Manila and going back to their provinces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Have there been any reports about how that affected kind of the coronavirus? Did it spread the virus like to the provinces and all that stuff?
Oh, that's because I remember he gave us like maybe like 3 days notice that like by this time, like I think it was midnight of the 16th, we're gonna start doing all the checkpoints and shutting down some of the routes and stuff. And that's a really good point. I don't think we looked into how that affected it. But basically the enhanced community quarantine is for the whole island of Luzon. And why people were fleeing to the provinces or moving down there is because they knew, well, I guess you guys know that Metro Manila is like, the city where people work, but,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of families actually really live in the provinces, whether on the weekends or, make the commute into Metro Manila every day. So a lot of people didn't want to get stuck in Metro Manila for the time period. So that's why they were going home to the provinces. And I remember it was really scary because we were seeing pictures of people like rushing to the bus stations and stuff like that. And it was like huge crowds, massive crowds. And because the quarantine wasn't in effect yet, like there was no like proper social distancing in place. So definitely, I don't know if that contributed anything to the spread because, there were definitely crowds at that time. And I think in the beginning, we were able to track like the initial cases, like maybe the first couple hundred cases really well. But then after that, when it became in the thousands, I mean, I'm sure someone's tracking where it's all coming from, but now I guess it's just like a huge mess that it's just transmitting in the hospitals. And there were even like they were even saying like a few weeks ago, like some people who were just going out to go to the grocery would get it. So was it in the grocery? Was it, just all of the contact tracing, I'm sure has been nuts the last few days and weeks here.
Have there been any kind of specific concentrations of cases within Metro Manila?
Within Metro Manila, I don't think so, but I think nationwide, definitely the most number of cases is here in Metro Manila.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like in a particular city or area, but when we were tracing it in the beginning, it definitely all came from travel. So people who had been to Japan or the Middle East, some of the overseas Filipino workers who were coming back from that cruise ship, I think, that had the virus on it. Oh, so wow. That's how it started in the beginning, and then the local transmission started.
So it's
go ahead, Elaine.
It sounds like the problem, the key component to it is that it's just too overwhelming to track. Like the cases were so exponential each time that there wasn't enough people to be able to do the analysis. Is that right?
maybe. I'm not sure. But I think definitely, why here in the Philippines and in Metro Manila in particular, why we've been kind of compliant with the quarantine so far is because, just looking at the statistics, like the number of the population here and the capacity of our hospitals, it's like, definitely we can't handle like a massive caseload of coronavirus patients. So I see what's happening to you guys over there, and people are demanding to get their haircuts and to go to the bowling alley and stuff like that. But here it's like, we're like, because like the hospitals in Metro Manila, like the top hospitals in the country, they're like not taking patients anymore for coronavirus. So it's serious. Like if you get sick and you need a ventilator, it's like, forget it.
And worldwide, and especially here in the United States, the way, going to what you were talking about, Elaine, we stopped trying to figure out like the capacity. The growth was so fast, right? It wasn't even containable. That's why the whole testing thing for even the States or even us is like, hey, if you don't have symptoms, we're not going to test you. We're not going to waste a test on somebody who doesn't have symptoms, right? Until they figured that all out, because it happens so fast. This thing is ridiculously contagious, and it happens really, really fast. So that's why there were even some articles that says, we're not even going to contain this anymore. We're not going to try to do that. All we're going to do is try to figure out how to make sure people don't overcrowd the hospitals.
Yeah.
Because people are going to get it. We're not going to overcrowd the hospitals. This is how you don't get it. Stay home, right? All that stuff.
Stay home. Yeah. In the Philippines, do you have people who say that like before they knew what Corona was or COVID-19 was, did they get sick and then they think in retrospect they might have had COVID-19?
Not anyone I know. And I think like in the first few days of the quarantine, like I also wasn't feeling well, and I was in an area that had just had its first case. And I remember like I called my boss like, oh my God, I'm coughing. Do I have it? And she was like, okay, you got to calm down. She was like, were you like face to face with the person who had it? And I was like, no. And she was like, yeah, part of it is also like the fear was also spreading, like the first few days, because like we just didn't understand like, how can you get it if you're in the same city as this person? Like, does it mean that you can get it? And I think that's kind of where the first Viber groups were starting, because it was like, like within the condos and the apartments, like, oh my God, do we have a case here? Does that mean like any one of us can get it? And we need to like disinfect the whole building, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think like another part of it was also all the uncertainty. All the uncertainty around what could really happen. So I don't know if like you guys, it's the same, but like pretty much here, I think every day the Department of Health is basically giving an update, and the president goes on TV like once a week at least. Part of it is
only once a week. That's so lucky.
I think in the beginning it was more, but like some of them were definitely rambling, and and like I think a lot of people were complaining in the beginning because he was coming on TV like at midnight, like thanks bro. Yeah. Like when everyone's about to sleep now, they have to wake up and listen to you. So yeah, I think though they've been listening that's like not a nice way to do your press conferences, so they're trying to make it a bit earlier.
So far there's been 8,928 confirmed cases in the Philippines.
Yeah, are you looking on Google too?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's resulted in 603 deaths.
Yeah, this is what our curve looks like now, guys. So
wow,
like all over the place.
Yeah.
So she is showing us a graph. For those who can't see, she's showing us a graph. And it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it looks like squiggly mountain range, not flattening, basically.
Yeah.
Because there are spikes and stuff. So, yeah.
Ish, I had a question about like in the work that you do in terms of, I know you kind of alluded to it, like the government has sort of taken over some of these things in terms of military checkpoints, etc. But is help getting to where it's supposed to get to? And even before that, is there help being given?
Yeah, so I think one thing you guys might see like on social media and stuff is the government does usually do like these food packs, and they distribute it to like, the most vulnerable families. So there's definitely been a lot of that in Metro Manila in the last few weeks. And besides that, here I think the private sector is super active. So there have been a lot of volunteer initiatives as well to basically donate food and donate supplies, and things like that. So I think there definitely has been a lot of relief in terms of food and different supplies that people would need. But the question here is like, how long can it be sustained? Because definitely, I mean, even the private sector, there comes a point that they can't sustain that kind of support anymore. So it's one of these things where it's like, I wonder what'll happen next.
Right.
Because basically, like, the government has allowed the president to allocate a huge budget to support this. But I think a lot of people are also wondering, like, how long can it really go for? Because definitely people want to get back to work, and people are concerned about, making their incomes and, being able to sustain themselves. I'm sure, nobody wants this to go on, for much longer than it needs to be. But like I was saying earlier, what is our indicator for then lifting the quarantine? Like, I know people need to get back to work, businesses want to operate, and like Philippine Airlines and like a lot of the airlines here, they're like definitely bleeding money every day, not being able to make any income for their businesses. But if we do lift it, what will happen if we didn't do enough to basically stop the spread? So it's a balance that we're trying to find here, because I think a lot of businesses are very much concerned about getting back to work and everything, but at what risk?
So here in the United States, this whole crisis has kind of very much exposed the inequities in society. Who gets infected, kind of the rate of deaths, etc., who is more vulnerable in as terms of frontline workers. How is it like? Can you see kind of the exposure of inequities in society, like in the Philippines? Like for example, like in Metro Manila, social distancing is like almost impossible, like for in urban slums, right? And squatters and such. So, what has kind of been the effect of the coronavirus among poorer Filipinos?
Yeah, I think I read a comment the other day. From someone in government that said, like, we should get back to work because the poor people are resilient to the virus anyway. And I was just like, seriously? Like, that is just because, like, I don't know, not enough people have been exposed, but you can't say things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Definitely, there have been people here from, I would say, like the upper middle classes of society who have been infected with the virus. But like, what was really scary was like even the top hospitals could not like save a lot of them. So just kind of gives you an idea of like the capacities here of the hospitals and how crazy the virus is in general. But I haven't heard of like whether the virus is like super spreading in the slums, but you could definitely see sometimes in the comments that the government makes in terms of like the disconnect with understanding who can really get it and what, the inequities in place in terms of the transmission. Like I don't think they're thinking about that at all. because they make stupid comments like that, like, oh, poor people are resilient to it anyway, so we can get back to work. It's just crazy.
So I know the military has been deployed, and the police has been deployed all around Metro Manila. And then Duterte even said, if you violate the ECQ, you'll just be shot. Yeah. So have you heard of any actual case? Executed. Yeah. Have you heard of any kind of cases like that? Is it in the news and stuff?
Yeah, I think there have been a few cases, like, a few weeks, maybe a few days ago, in like a really posh village here in MAKATI. The police like beat a guy for like basically his helper was outside like watering the lawn or watering their plants.
Oh my God.
And he was like a foreigner, right? He's a foreigner.
I don't know if he was a foreigner or not, but he was old. Like maybe that's like the most interesting part about this is it was like an old guy and he was like, this is still my property. She didn't need to wear a mask. Like I'm sure there were like things wrong on both sides, but definitely you didn't need to beat an old man into the ground for something like that. So like these like kind of like brutality cases I think also have been coming out during the ECQ, and like a lot of intimidation like at checkpoints and stuff, like, is this your employment certificate? Do you really work there? And those kind of things where you just have people who are like emboldened to be abusive in a way. So that's also coming out as well, which is a really unfortunate development during this time.
But no stories of people actually getting shot just for like.
No, there have been too.
There have been. Okay.
Yeah, there have been like people. I think I saw in the news that like people who they were saying like, oh, they were like violating curfew, so they accidentally got shot. Kind of the same as how it was in the early days of the Duterte administration. The same kind of.
It's like a return to that.
I wouldn't say like a full return because I don't know how widespread it is, but I've seen that things like that have happened, which is like kind of how it was before.
And a lot of those happen in the slum areas too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The whole like papers, like having to have paperwork to go out and the curfew, do people get the sense that it feels like echoes of when of like Marcos era martial law, like that type of situation?
Yeah, I think definitely in the early days of the ECQ, people were all wondering if it's gonna be like martial law. Yeah, and I think that's why they were really careful in saying that this is an enhanced community quarantine. It isn't martial law. But you do hear people also saying like, oh, we should just have martial law because we would fully contain the virus with guns. So there's two different groups of opinion, definitely. And I don't know how necessary, some of the measures are. Like the curfew thing, I guess makes sense just to discourage people to go out. But also, I don't know, if you just say stay inside, you don't really have to give a time to it. But because people were joking in the beginning, like, because the virus is very active at night. That's why we got to be inside. But I think definitely it looks and feels like how it was back in the day in terms of the strictness of the protocols.
I was curious about this is more like a social question. So here in the States, there's a lot of like racist tweets or even like racism in person towards like the Chinese folks because of the supposed origins of this. Did you see anything like that in the Philippines? I'm just curious, just because you guys are completely on a different hemisphere.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. We also saw that in the early days here as well, because yeah, there are a lot of Chinese people living in the Philippines now, and we know that there are a lot of like businesses as well that employ mainland Chinese here in the Philippines. So I think in the beginning, like there were some issues that I saw, like my friends were posting on Facebook, that there were these like it was like the same story being repeated on Facebook by like these Duterte like chat bots and things, like saying like, oh, I felt so bad for this Chinese guy in my condo, like he like coughed and everybody looked at him bad, and we shouldn't be like that towards the Chinese, blah 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 blah. But you don't know if it was really true that that incident actually happened, because like people knew that those were basically like trolls and chatbots, like basically trying to make the case that we should be friendly still with China, because that's a huge issue now in the Philippines, like the whole Duterte's position vis-a-vis China, because like there were a lot of like these trolls and chatbots like defending the Chinese, but it was two pieces. Like, yeah, you had the ones who were defending and others who were like, we should be wary of them because they were the ones who brought the virus. So yeah, that happened a lot here too.
That's interesting.
So don't be racist is a global thing.
It is a universal message.
It's a universal.
Always been a global thing, yeah.
Don't be racist, period.
Yeah. It was from the pangolin and the bat, guys.
Oh God, Jesus.
So I know some of the latest news coming out of the Philippines, to at least American mainstream media, is about how the government is trying to forbid a lot of nurses and medical staff from leaving the Philippines. Leaving the Philippines because there's not enough medical personnel to deal with the pandemic in the Philippines. So I mean, obviously, you kind of talked about how the medical infrastructure is not is not super maintained right now. It's overwhelmed, now. So, how is that news going over, like, amongst kind of in the discussion in the Philippines about this epidemic?
Yeah, I think a lot of you guys probably, we have family and friends who are working in the medical field everywhere, not just in the US, not just in the Philippines, because we know that, we dominate in that field everywhere. Because I don't know if it's been the same for you guys, but I know like some friends and family have been saying that, they're calling out for like people to come here, for nurses to come to this country because they need support. But I think there's been a lot of coverage in terms of like basically the stress it's putting on our medical infrastructure here and the need to continue to support the Filipino population. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because typically we do have, the nurses and the doctors wanting to go abroad and wanting to, they want like a better life for their families there. And they're in a way, quote unquote, forced to go out. But I mean, it's not like, it's really, it's difficult right now in terms of trying to manage it within our own border. So I can imagine that though they might be enticed to go abroad, maybe the government just wants to ensure that we can fight it on our own here too.
Yeah. Because I know out here, like, they're bypassing certain tests, like the NCLEX in California for new nurses.
Oh, really? Yeah.
They're like letting them, because the hospital infrastructure, like they need folks, they're letting them like expedited, or like, I don't know if they're bypassing the NCLEX or anything, but like they're almost like, you're graduating from nursing school, we'll put you in a hospital, something like that.
Yeah, I think I saw that from like some of like the universities in the US. Like if you're a new graduating doctor, you're like, welcome to the fight, welcome to the war.
We'll put you in the front line
right away. Exactly. I don't know if that's, I don't think it's been the same here necessarily, but basically, yeah, everyone who's out there already, we continue to go on. And I think like some of like the Western like media has been covering like how it's been here for the frontliners here. Like I remember the Washington Post like had a really nice like photo essay of what it looks like in the Philippine General Hospital, you know, in these days of the virus. And it's really, yeah, it really kind of shows like, you know, how we've been dealing with it here and the stress it's really been putting on our frontliners for sure.
So we in LA, you know what it was like here. The air quality here is terrible, but since we've been on lockdown, it is now so beautiful. The sky is clear. I don't know what smog is anymore. I can breathe. So what is it like for you in the Philippines with ECQ? Like, what basically are your boogers no longer gray from breathing?
let me check. No, but yeah, I think like, I mean, like many things in life, there's the good and the bad, and you know, there's positive points while people are suffering as well. And I think one thing that you point out is really interesting is that, yeah, I think because I live in a condo and I'm pretty high up, a lot of people have been like taking pictures, and you could now like see the mountain ranges, you could see the sea, because yeah, the pollution and the fog from just cars belching smoke out every day has lifted, which has been, you know, one of these things that we're privileged to see, you know, like the five of us talking while we know that people are basically fighting for their lives, that we could also enjoy, you know, things like that, and positive things are still coming out of this experience.
So, you know, you talked about it, you know, earlier too, but you know, what do you think is going to be, you know, the long-term effect on, you know, the folks that are the most affected, you know, the impoverished?
Yeah.
I mean, they're already kind of in a bad spot to begin with. And who knows what's happening with them now, considering the news is not necessarily very clear.
Yeah.
And how does that affect your work moving forward too?
Yeah, I think like in the beginning, it was all about like, okay, the basic needs need to be met. And that's what people have been primarily focused on, like still until this day, that it's like, okay, basically we're keeping everyone alive. But what's looming ahead is definitely the socio-economic impact of all of this. And I don't think we've really fathomed it just yet, because, yeah, I think it's also like we're at home, we're okay, we're alive, thankfully. But, you know, what's going to happen, what's going to come? Like, I think all of us are thinking about, I mean, not just us here in the Philippines, but you guys are thinking too, like, how it's going to look like for the economy, and like, just, is this another downturn? Because like we were saying earlier, like when I started at SIPA, there definitely was the downturn then. And then now it's like, are we headed for the same kind of thing? And definitely it's still uncertain here. I don't think, definitely people are thinking about it. It's not like we're like blind to what's going to happen, but in terms of knowing what we're going to do exactly, I don't think that's been figured out yet. Like, I think I've seen a lot in the news in the US, like all of these subsidies that are coming, and your government is also going to be supporting like small businesses and things like that. And here, like the government also has like a huge like amelioration program, but it's also how long, you know, the support that will come, like how long will it really last? Because it has been more than a month now. So if it's a lost wage for more than a month, it's a big deal to people who live day to day. And I think here, like a lot of informal economy workers were basically like, we call it here no work, no pay. So basically, it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just scary what can happen to the daily laborers here. And I think we're really looking in terms of how it will push people back into poverty instead of, the work that the government and society has been doing in the last few years to develop the Philippines and to elevate its status to the middle income country it is today. It's just scary to think like, oh my gosh, is this gonna turn us back in time?
Yeah.
Like regress. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, knowing that too, and knowing that, even here in America, we're all suffering in different ways. I mean, is there anything that, Filipinos abroad can do to support folks back home? Aside from like the usual, like, remittances and corned beef, I suppose.
Hey, don't shortchange corned beef, Mike.
Corned beef 19.
Oh gosh. Well, I think definitely what I've seen, not only in this pandemic, but also like, whenever there's a crisis here in the Philippines, like I've really seen like that bayanihan spirit, like really bring people together. And I really admire like the friends and family that I have, because, just like private citizens here have been like organizing like relief distributions. I have, my high school batch even organized like the purchase of personal protective equipment for certain hospitals. And we were all just like fundraising within our own networks and making the effort to help like the people that we knew were suffering and our frontliners. So there are a ton of initiatives here in the Philippines that are supporting the frontliners. And I guess when I was in the US during Typhoon Haiyan, I remember wanting, also feeling that urge to help, people back home and, my own countrymen. And I would just say, like, look for initiatives that are interesting to you, and reputable initiatives that, are really supporting people on the front line. And if you can, because I know like in this crisis, it's not like everyone can donate. But if you are in that fortunate position, definitely find an initiative that's supporting the frontliners, and give there. I know that there are a lot of groups who are like preparing meals for frontliners, and it's really touching to see like their posts on Facebook, like, the different restaurants who are like giving them food, and they'd be like, oh, I'm so happy. Like today I got, pizza and things that I like to eat, for my meal in the hospital. And it's really nice to see like the business community and, private individuals and charities come together to support. And I think like here in the Philippines, more than any other place that I've seen, it's really the community that mobilizes, where the government falls short and things like that. It's really people that come together to support each other. So there are a ton of places that are really organizing things every day to support our frontliners, and their work is really amazing.
Can I ask sorry, I'm going to ask a social question again. I'm just curious about like church and how Easter was
good question.
During this time in a very kind of Christian country.
Yeah.
Like for us here in Los Angeles, because it's what I know, but we closed down like parks knowing that people are going to go to parks during Easter Sunday. We closed down like you couldn't even go to a park to jog. Like we closed down everything pretty much. And we had rangers out there and everything. But I don't know, how's the church vibe scene in the Philippines?
The church vibe.
Yeah, we're all online here too. But like, did people like kind of sneak out and decide? Even during Holy Week, right? Did people sneak out and do their like penitence and everything?
Well, no one I know did. I think that was one of the first things that was like in the rule for the enhanced community quarantine. Like they knew, like, you know, Filipinos very religious, Catholic, blah blah blah. They were like, no church. There will be no church, and like I think they really had to get that message out, because I don't know if you guys. I think it's a universal thing that in dealing with like our grandparents and like older people, they were like, I don't need to, this is just a virus and I like survived the war and shit. Like, I don't need to be super serious about this. But we were like all fighting with our grandparents here. Like, do not go to church. Do not go out. I'm going to set you up on the Cathedral of Manila YouTube that you can watch every day. So it was a struggle in the beginning for me, because like I have all my 4 grandparents still alive. And we had to tell them like, sorry, Lolo, you can't freaking go out to church on Palm Sunday and buy your palms. You cannot do it. You have to stay inside, and this is serious. But yeah, everybody is definitely going to mass online now, and I think like it's even funny because some of the other churches like have mass every day for like several hours, and my grandparents are like, oh, I went to 3 masses today instead of 1, because like I liked the video. I liked the video on YouTube, and I was like, oh, you guys are so cute. But I think you just needed to go once, but okay.
It probably also helped that when the Pope did his like delivery of, I think he had like a service where it's usually like a ton of people, and and he was by himself pretty much, and his say he actually said stay home. So Filipinos probably listen to that, because I know
all of that really helped, and I think like the bishops here really said like, nope, there will be no mass, and it's okay. Like, okay, you're not gonna get communion, but it's okay, don't worry. So I think that really helped, because the older people here were really hard-headed. They were like, I have to go to mass, and I'm like, oh, you guys gotta calm down.
Cool.
Like, eat a skyflake, that can be your communion.
Or the champoy.
Oh yeah. Or a hot flake.
Hot flake. So there's, in the United States, has been in all over the globe, there's been kind of moments of sociality in this kind of era of social distancing. Like people serenading each other, people like singing. I remember in Brooklyn they were like singing to Biggie's song.
Love it.
Yeah. So has there been anything like that similarly in Metro Manila?
Yeah, I think because so much of our lives are online. I mean, we see a lot of these things mostly online. Like, I think like there was like a group of people who were also singing, and like they were like serenading frontliners in some of the different hospitals, and I think like some of it happens kind of like in like those beautiful videos from Europe and stuff that people are like singing in their apartment buildings and things, but I think a lot of it is mostly like the joy that's being spread online in terms of the funny videos and the sweet videos of people doing nice things for each other during this quarantine. And I definitely see as well like all of the bartering. I don't know if you guys are doing bartering there too, but like
I did it today.
Yeah. But like when we get like I mean like I live nearby like my sister and my dad, and whenever I get like huge orders of food, I always like someone will drive it over, because only one person can go out. So we do things like that too, and it's bright spots during this time for sure.
Cool. All right.
Any last questions for Ish?
This has been fun, guys.
This is really informative.
Yeah.
ECQ times.
Well, I guess the name of the title of the podcast, of the episode.
ECQ times.
Enhanced podcast.
Enhanced.
Enhanced extreme final one.
Final draft 4.5.
Final to, promise.
All right, Ish, fun question for you. After the shutdown is over and all that, what are you going to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, and this, or, because I already know, I I want to go to like a all you can eat sushi restaurant.
Oh,
The sushi by Chin, right?
Yeah.
We're going.
yeah. Oh gosh. I think definitely going out to eat somewhere, and I miss dim sum, so it would have to be dim sum. But definitely with my family. It's been weird that like we see each other on Zoom and we see each other on FaceTime and things like that. But it would be really nice to see each other in person.
So I snuck a hug into my mom because I couldn't help it. I went over there and I was like, she was just looking at me and she was like, "Did you bring me snack?" I was like, "Oh man!" So I doused my face with like Purell, and I was like, I can't. But I wasn't supposed to say that because I was like, "What the man?" So. Because that would have been my first thing, but I'm like, I snuck it in already. So I couldn't. I was like, I'm looking at her. I'm like 6 feet away. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm gonna hug my mom. But I made sure. I'm not sick. I wasn't exhibiting symptoms. I bathed and I Purelled. And
So if I give my dad a hug, I should wash my face in Purell and then I can hug him. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I did.
Or he has to take a shower after.
I put the wet one on my face so that when I hug him, the wet one touches his face.
It was hard, but anyway.
Yeah, it's weird that you can see your family on Zoom, but it's like, oh my gosh, we haven't hugged in so long, so it'd be really nice to do that after.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hug you all for a very long time.
Yes.
It's gonna get really uncomfortable.
Oh.
I want it to be uncomfortable.
That's weird, but okay.
While we wait for sushi, Ryan, we're just gonna hug the whole time.
I know, seriously.
Yeah.
There's just some things that we've always taken for granted. Another last fun question for you is just because, of our audience of Filipino Americans, there was like a bunch of toilet paper kind of like shortage, quote unquote, here. And, in the bunch of Filipino households, everyone's like, what is, there's some folks, of course.
Also,
was there something like that there? Not really. Because everyone's tabo, right?
Yeah, well, I think definitely everybody started hoarding groceries. There was a time where we were like, oh my God, why is there no more, why is there no more mungo? It was really disturbing, like that things were going off the shelf. And I'm sure there was also a hoarding of toilet paper. Okay. But yeah, we weren't worried here.
That's what I'm saying, anyway.
I was like, oh, we got water for that.
Okay. Well, that was like our first episode, and did I talk about how like I don't remember how to do it, and I'm terrible. My Filipino card.
You gotta practice.
But I ordered something called the tushy.com. It's coming by June 1st.
Yeah.
Tushy.com?
And people here have like some people have like the Japanese toilet.
Yeah.
Those are amazing.
So we were like, with the paper, these Americans.
Like with like a bidet and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a tushy.com is basically the American version of a Japanese toilet.
There you
go. But it doesn't, like Ivy has one, and hers has a heater.
Music?
It has music. It has a dryer for your bum.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
She has the
deluxe.
Deluxe.
She has the enhanced.
She has the enhanced toilet.
Enhanced quarantine toilet.
Yeah. So we were not worried here. We were just like, look at these Americans rushing to buy all their toilet paper, and we're like.
So you're saying you hoarded mongo?
Yeah. I don't know if you like pre-quarantine. I was semi a hoarder, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, my hoarding stocks are being depleted. So I'm starting to worry a little bit.
So that's what happened to me as well. But then I also realized I did like a Marie Kondo and purged all my crafting. I was like, I don't need this. And I got rid of all the projects that I thought like I'll never have time to do. And then this happened, and I was like, oh, I can sew masks. And I was like, I don't have anything. I was like, I can do this. And I was like, I don't have it anymore. I'm not buying it though. I'm trying to be good.
Okay.
Like I'm not buying it because I'm buying tushies. I'm buying a bidet for my toilet instead.
Buying tushies.
That's funny.
Anything else? Any other final answers, final questions?
I had so many final
Final.
version.
Ryan, what's your next final question?
No, that's it. I think Isha answered all of it, so it was great.
Oh.
Mike,
it was really nice to talk to you guys.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, this is fun. This was fun to talk about. At least just get us some perspective as well, and also that we're not alone. Like across the ocean, you're like, oh shit, you guys are going through the same stuff. So or similar things, not the same.
It's nice to talk about what is the same, and of course, what's different between us, and just to talk about it, talk it out during this quarantine.
We're literally living through history. Right. Years from now, we will talk about this. One day when Joe is teaching his class, he'll assign this episode to his students.
Oh my gosh!
And then Joe will give them a quiz.
Yeah, remember the toilet paper?
What is the bidet that Elaine ordered?
Oh man.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Do you want people to find you on social media? No.
Sure, they can find me.
On Instagram or wherever you want to share. You can share your dogs, whatever Instagram handle you want. You can feel free to say whatever one.
Yeah, you guys can follow me or ask questions about what life is like here in the Philippines. My handle on Instagram is @1, like the number 1, BELLE. So it's like Isabelle.
Oh, nice. Nux. I was like,
not everyone gets it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Because it's like a pun, and I like puns.
Puns are fun.
Puns are fun. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Ish.
Thanks, guys.
Until we see each other in real life, when we go to Disneyland and run around and be ridiculous together.
When we're there in person again.
In person. And hopefully your relative's house, it has air conditioner that works, unlike last time. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ryan, Joe, Michael.
Yeah, this is awesome.
In 2 seconds.
All right.
But thanks for listening.
Thank
Bye.
you.
This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado, legal advisor Rianne Fajardo, and graphic design by Vincent Collyer.